Today on Tested 4x4, we're going to take a look at possibly one of the longest running Jeep models ever produced. It was first introduced in 1963 and didn't go away until 1991. That's 28 years of production with very minimal changes to the overall style of the vehicle. Now that's impressive on its own, but add to the fact that this vehicle basically created an entire genre of vehicles, well, that's even more impressive. Of course, we're talking about the Jeep Wagoneer. In 1963, when the Wagoneer was introduced, it was built to replace the Willys wagon, and it's often referred to as simply a full-size Jeep, or FSJ. The Wagoneer was originally sold as a station wagon, but this is the vehicle that created the category we know as sport utility vehicle. Now, I honestly believe that the reason that the Wagoneer basically stuck around for as many years as it did is because it went through the 4 different car companies. I think it just was off their radar. I think when it first came out in the 60s, I think it was incredibly popular because, like I said, there was really nothing else like it. I think by the time the late 70s, early 80s came around, I think it had like a niche market or a niche following for people who just loved the nostalgia of this car, because by then it was 15, 16 years old. And then I think by the 90s, it was almost retro cool, and that was what kept it around for so long. What you have to remember is in the 60s, if you were looking for a rugged four-wheel drive vehicle with body-on-frame construction that's built to handle a little bit of work and most importantly a bunch of adventure, there really wasn't a lot of options out there. Yeah, there was the Bronco and then a couple import vehicles, but if you were looking for a luxury family vehicle that you could fit the whole family in and most importantly have 4 doors, make it easy to get in and out, this was kind of your only option. Plus, when I say luxury, these are the items that were listed as luxury add-ons for the original Wagoneer. That was power steering, a radio with more than one speaker, tilt steering, and most importantly, power brakes. The Wagoneer saw many power plants under the hood over the years, mainly because it was produced by so many car companies. The Tornado 230 cubic inch inline 6, 2 different AMC inline 6s, AMC 327, 360, or 401 V8, and the Dauntless Buick 350 cubic inch V8 were all available. Through the 28 years that the Wagoneer was being built, it was actually built by 4 different car companies. It started with the Willys Overland Group, and that became the Kaiser Corporation, and then eventually American Motors, or AMC, built this vehicle, and it ended its life being built by the Chrysler Corporation. Now, because of that, just like the engine, there was a bunch of different transmission options. There were actually a 3-speed and a 4-speed manual, and then 3 different automatic transmissions to choose from. Depending on the year, you could either get a Turbo 400 in here, a Chrysler 904, or a Chrysler 727. When you're driving this generation of Jeep Wagoneer, it's what you would expect from a late 80s, early 90s car. I honestly believe that the people who were in charge of designing the interiors in this generation of automobiles were kind of trying to recreate your couch in the basement of your grandmother's house. The seats in almost everything around this generation were the same. They're just big, comfy, cushy seats. It really does feel like you're sitting on a couch in your house. That's what they were after. Same with the ride. The ride is spongy and soft, and it's certainly not what you'd expect from a hardcore 4-wheel drive truck, which is what this vehicle is underneath. I mean, this is body on frame, leaf springs all 4 corners, true 4-wheel drive with solid axles front and rear in the 90s. That was pretty rare. By the time the early 90s had come around, most manufacturers in their heavy-duty pickup truck line, they'd already gone ahead and switched over to independent front suspension. So the fact that this thing was still being built at that point in time, it's kind of surprising. But it's definitely a popular vehicle, and it definitely has a cult following from anyone who loves the Jeep Wagoneer. The full-size Jeep was equipped with multiple transfer case options, starting with the Dana 20 in the early years. The Borg-Warner 1305 or 1339 Quadra-Track case came in the mid-years. The Quadra-Track was the first Borg-Warner transfer case to be used in a Jeep, and it was also the very first aluminum transfer case and the first case with a chain drive. The model ended its run with a case that's in this particular Jeep, the NP208. Suspension on the Wagoneer is pretty typical of Jeeps of this era, and that is multi-pack leaf springs on all four corners with a single shock absorber. Now, believe it or not, this suspension design did not change over the entire 28-year production cycle of this truck. The fact that this truck rides the way it does is actually pretty impressive. You have to remember, we're driving around in a body-on-frame, leaf-sprung, solid axle vehicle, front and rear. If we were in a 1990 Chevrolet pickup truck with these same suspension pickup points, it would ride rough. It would be a rough riding truck. But this thing is like, it's almost too soft. It's just squishy, which I gotta say, it's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. So if you're in the market for a vehicle like the Jeep Wagoneer, what are some things that you need to think about? Well, first of all, you should start on the Hemmings Marketplace app and look around there and see what's available for sale. And then you really have to make a decision. What are you trying to build? Are you gonna build a hardcore off-road vehicle? Are you gonna build something to cruise to cars and coffee? Or are you gonna build an overlanding camping rig? The nice thing about the Wagoneer is it can fill all those niches. It can be any of those things. It all just depends what you do to the truck. You could leave it bone stock like this one and have a great time just driving around in it. Or you could throw some serious parts at it and turn it into a hardcore rock crawler, because if you remember the M715 that we drove earlier this season, this is basically the station wagon version of that truck. Everything that I did to turn that 715 into a hardcore rock crawler, you could do to one of these Grand Wagoneers, and it would take it and it would love it. And it would spend time on the trail just getting beat within an inch of its life. And that is what I would do. Maybe not with this wagon here. This one's pretty clean. I don't know if I can cut this one up. Maybe we'll shop for a different one.